Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode here at the Damage Report, still under lockdown and with a lot of news to get to. We are going to be zooming out a bit and taking stock of a couple of different issues, different crises that we're currently dealing with, both the pandemic but also the economic damage that it's wrought. We all know that it's bad, but will you be shocked to find out that it is far worse for certain sorts of Americans than others? We'll be breaking down those numbers, as well as getting you up to date with some of Donald Trump's most recent messaging around the pandemic and the election. We're going to talk about the election in terms of demographics, what sort of support is going towards Trump and Biden. We have a number for you. For Trump, his support, that is one of the most depressing things that I've heard in quite a while. After the experience we've all been through for a few years, you're going to be shocked to see this. But you know what else we have today? We have something new for you today. We have a new co-host today. You might have seen him in an interview just a few weeks ago. Gary Chambers, welcome to the Damage Report.
Thank you, John. I appreciate it, brother.
Glad to have you on. If people saw the interview, they know that you're an activist and but also publisher and co-owner of the Rouge collection. But you were introduced to us through a viral bit of activism that you'd engaged in, trying to get the Robert E. Lee High School renamed. And it turned out that was a pretty successful effort, right?
Yes, it is. Yes, it has been. Actually, the name came down this week off the building. And so they are in the process of trying to figure out when the new signage will go up. We think it'll take a few weeks, maybe a few months to get it up, but the name has been changed to Liberty High School. I was not a fan of that name, but I'm just glad Lee is gone.
It's certainly an improvement. Excited to have you on. Also excited, our fans are big fans of acknowledging birthdays, and I heard that yours was yesterday. Is that true?
It was 35
Awesome.
Yesterday, brother.
Awesome. Well, happy birthday. Hopefully we'll have a little bit of fun on the show. It can serve as a bit of a little bit of celebration. And hopefully we'll have a lot of fun. We're glad to have you on. I know some people are saying in the chat that there's a little bit of background noise. We know, can't currently do anything about it. Apologize. Maybe it'll go away at some point. We'll have to see. And before we launch into the stories, I did want to mention a few different things. One, an upcoming special that we have called What Does the Future Look Like? We're going to be talking about the future of race relations, the economy, technology, the 2020 elections, and more. This is going to be hosted by Cenk Uygur, and he's going to be joined by guest speakers including Andrew Yang, Derek Johnson, Dolores Huerta, Nomi Prinz, Nicholas Thompson, and more. This is going to be happening next Tuesday, August 11th at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time, 4:30 p.m. Pacific Time on all the normal platforms. So you can tune into that, and hopefully it'll be a really awesome, engaging conversation. Also wanted to let you know, this sort of direct to the fans. TYT is apparently considering submitting the Damage Report for a Streamy Award in the Breakout Creator category. And what we need is a list of our clips that you all think are really emblematic of what the show is about. And so if there's any clips that you remember, feel free to tweet those to me. Because I generally forget about the things we've talked about the second we stop the show, so it's hard for me to remember. But if you could help me do that, I'd like to crowdsource for this thing. So, with that, Gary, you ready to jump into some news?
Let's go to work, brother.
By the way, I don't know if you can see, but in the comments, there was only about 1 million happy birthdays coming in for you from the audience. Awesome. Okay, with that, let's do this thing. I appreciate it. Awesome. Okay. Donald Trump was interviewed in the past day by Geraldo Rivera, and the topic of his coronavirus response came up, a question that he had been asked months ago. Do you acknowledge any mistakes? Were there any flaws in your response? It's been a while, and a lot more people have died, so here is what he had to say.
I'm going to leave you pretty soon, but looking back on this awful plague that's now killed almost 160,000 Americans, there were some missteps. Don't you wish you had done some things differently?
I think that, first of all, the governors run their states. You understand that. That's the way it's set up. I mean, that's the way it's supposed to be. And whether you call it federalist or anything else, the governors run. We've had some great governors, and we have some governors that didn't do as well. But what I did with ventilators and what I did with getting people equipment, because the governors were not stocked, nobody has ever done a better job. We've done a great job, and we haven't been rewarded with the publicity.
So you don't admit any missteps? You don't think that maybe if you were a little more enthusiastic about it earlier?
I guess you could say that people call things wrong, but that it's understandable. Nobody knew what this disease was. At the beginning, they said no masks, and people still say that, some people, but some people don't. I figure I say use them. But I wouldn't mandate it, but I say use them. But no, I think we've done an unbelievable job.
Okay, so he acknowledges, he says use them. If you want to wear a mask, you should use them, I guess. But he acknowledges no mistakes. Gary, what do you think? Is there a mistake or two that maybe he can acknowledge?
I think Trump's entire existence is a mistake, okay? and certainly his response to the coronavirus. There have been missteps from day one, from him saying that it was just a small thing, that they had it under control. And the truth is, what you need from a commander-in-chief, from somebody in leadership, is somebody who's going to give you the facts, somebody who's going to tell you the truth, even if that truth is difficult, even if that truth is hard for people to swallow, but you're going to tell people what's real so that we can prevent deaths. And so what I think Trump has accepted is that the majority of the people are Black, brown, or poor that are dying from this virus, and he's accepted that most of those people probably wouldn't support him anyway.
Yeah, we're not supposed to imply that there could be like a political sort of motivation to it, but it is difficult to have lived through the past few months and not think that that is driving the response, and was since the very beginning. They convinced themselves that it's only certain sorts of people that are dying and getting sick and losing their jobs, so it's just not that big of an issue. But, and I saw Geraldo had tweeted out that he had the interview, and his wife was like, he sounds so reasonable. And I responded to him like, You just asked the president if he made any mistakes during a pandemic response where 160,000 people have already lost their lives, and he said no, and then you moved on. How you wouldn't allow any other politician to do that? That's crazy. The idea, like, if 1,000 people had died, someone with a minimum of the ability to self-analyze should be able to acknowledge something that could have been done, even hypothetically, that would have been better. And he can't do that in what is the biggest domestic failure of our government in our lifetime. It's insane, and it needs to be called out, even by people like Geraldo who, support Trump. They have to be acknowledged that that's insane.
Well, one of the things that I've consistently talked about is if we compare this to gun violence, right? If these were homicides versus people dying from a virus, would we then consider that our cities were safe, right? We would not. If we imagine that cities had cities like Baton Rouge that have experienced several hundred deaths in the last few months, we would not consider if this was gun violence, that this was something acceptable. And it is a virus, and it is killing people, and we should view it the same way Trump views Chicago's gun violence. And if he took the coronavirus as seriously as he took going after protesters or targeting gun violence in major cities, then I think then we would get better results out of this guy. Yeah.
Just, like I think about the explosion in Lebanon. That over, I think the most recent number I saw was over 140 people have died, and it's being identified as the government just completely failed to move this material. They just let it sit there for a few years. How could the government have done this? And it's true. It's totally true. And 10 times as many people died just yesterday in America from coronavirus. And we have to be able to acknowledge that some of that would have been unavoidable, but some of it was avoidable if the president had cared from the very beginning. But, Geraldo continued on asking him, I think, a great follow-up question that I've been wondering about. Why don't you express a little bit more like empathy for the people who've died, frustration with the huge number who have died? And here's what he had to say.
And I think people need reassurance that maybe you should be more vocal about your concern about so many people being afflicted with this awful thing.
Well, I am very vocal. It hurts me no end. I think it's a disgrace, and I say it all the time. I say we shouldn't have lost one person. We shouldn't have lost one person. This should have been stopped by China. China did this to us. It should have been stopped by China. They stopped it from going into China. And they didn't stop it from going into Europe and the U.S. and the rest of the world. And Europe's plenty angry at them, too, I can tell you. But it's one of those things that's just terrible, and it should have never happened. They should have never allowed it to come out of China, but they did. They stopped it going into China, but they didn't stop it going to us and to the rest of the world. And I'm
sorry you were in the reason.
very angry about
it. As we all are,
Yeah, so that is really something. He's prompted to give empathy, and he says, and I am really angry. It's like, you haven't seen someone in a movie express empathy. You can't just mimic. You can't read the lines. Like, wow, he's barely a human in some ways.
Facts, brother.
Yeah. So look, he can't acknowledge any mistake. But here's what we're going to do. We're going to acknowledge the mistakes by updating people on how bad this thing is. So let's talk about the numbers. At least 1,252 new coronavirus deaths and about 54,000 new cases were reported in the U.S. just yesterday. Over the past week, there have been an average of nearly 57,000 cases per day, a decrease of 14% from the average 2 weeks earlier. So those apocalyptic numbers are actually a bit of an improvement over 2 weeks ago. As of Thursday morning, we're closing in on 5 million people in the U.S. who've been infected with the coronavirus, and at least 158,500 have died. And to give an idea of the current spread, it is now heavily clustered towards the south. Obviously, California still has some, and there are infections, in the entire eastern half of the U.S., but the worst is sort of spreading through Texas, through down along the coast of Florida, and you can see a little bit in the sort of mid-east, the upper south as well. And so, yeah, there are mistakes. There are a few mistakes.
Trump country, too. Pay attention.
It is.
To where you see governors like Kemp in Georgia who said, we can open, and it's important to open the economy, and look at what Georgia's doing. DeSantis in Florida and all that he said to reopen the economy, and it's so dangerous what they are doing because people listen to them. They trust them. They believe that the people that they elected have their best interest at heart, and what they don't, right? And you can see this through all of the activity that we see in our community and the spread that's taking place around the country.
Yeah. The whole thing is just so, we've probably talked about it on every show for the past 5 months, this thing. And so many times we've gone over these numbers and just assumed that at some point a threshold has to be reached where they'll start to take it seriously. And then we blow past, all of these different lines. 100,000 deaths wasn't enough. 150,000 deaths wasn't enough. And you just start to wonder, is there any line where they will... we're going to be talking about later, in terms of the coronavirus, stimulus bill, they're still just, bickering back and forth as weeks roll by, as if it's yeah, it'd be nice if we got something done, but it's not a priority or anything like that. It's just mind-blowing, the complete and utter failure of our government.
So think about this, though. Of the 100 United States senators, the vast majority of them are rich white men, okay? And we're talking about them debating whether or not people who don't have a job should get $600 a week to be able to pay their bills. They're saying it's an incentive not to work, rather than seeing how dysfunctional our government is, that it allows poverty wages to exist that give us the condition that we're in, where when something goes wrong and people need these government benefits, that they could not survive. Louisiana, without the coronavirus aid, our unemployment benefits are $240 a week. The average person gets about $216 a week. Who can survive on that, right? And to think that these men are sitting there, the only reason the economy has remained remotely stable in any capacity is because of these benefits. And now Republicans are attempting to reduce these benefits. It's almost as if they're asking for the bottom to fall out.
Yeah. And they're able to, because when the bottom falls out, they're going to be floating above it. It doesn't actually affect them.
Correct.
Isn't that weird? That we have a government of a totally different class than the people they're governing.
Well, that happens to be our fault, though, as voters, because as voters, we have got to say we want people of the people, for the people, and by the people to represent us. And these people are not of us. They're not from the same communities as us. I don't know anybody with a gold toilet like Trump. I don't know people who live in the luxury and savagery that he. Maybe the Southern white voters in Louisiana, Alabama, who earn some of the lowest wages in America do, right? Maybe they work for these people and there's a desire to become them. And people who want Trump to change, a leopard don't change his spots.
I don't think so. Certainly not at this point. Okay, before we launch into other stories, we're going to respond to a few super chats. People have been suggesting possible solutions to the audio problems. Can we try something, Gary? Would it be possible? Because I think it might be that my voice is coming out of your headphone and going into the mic. Would it be possible to turn me down a little bit in your ears? I think that might help a little bit. Sorry about the tech issues. It's a brave new digital world we're living in. So let's see if maybe that helped a little bit. I think it might have a little bit.
I turned you down.
We'll see. Thank you. Yeah, feel free to turn me off entirely. I don't know how much I'm adding. Okay, so let's see. In the super chats, Rockyard says President Garbage Fire is leading from behind and has America in full retreat. Yeah. Jake says so happy to see Gary Chambers. Happy B-Day. Let's see.
Thank you.
Seth O says to your co-host, thank you, comrade, for your passion and patriotism. People like you keep me going in the good fight. Awesome.
Appreciate it.
Kai Allen says, happy 35th, Gary. Welcome to Dragon Squad. Sup, John. Congrats on the award suggestion. Nainer says, the background noise sucks, but it is what it is, as Trump would say. But I think it's a little bit improved. We'll see. We'll see if people say that. Paul is saying, great show, guys. All the best from Scotland. Thank you, Scotland. Nathan Gilmer says, write in Bernie Sanders when we vote in November. Nathan, I love you, and thanks for the super chat. I'm not going to do that, but thank you.
I'm not doing that. We can't, as much as I'm not a fan of some of Joe Biden's policies, I do not want this guy again.
Yeah. And look, I voted enthusiastically for Bernie Sanders, in the primary in California. I would love the opportunity to vote for him again. I just don't think that this is it. If you do, you feel free. I don't control your vote, but that's not the path that I'm going to be walking in November.
I hope that this is a lesson, though, the entire Bernie deal, right, that progressives have got to get active in the Deep South with black voters. Because I think had Bernie had better relationships in the Deep South and gone after black voters more aggressively, the outcome would have been different.
Yeah, and look, I think that they tried between 2016 and 2020, but we can look at the results and say that clearly it wasn't successful enough. His efforts in, for instance, like the Southwest, trying to build support there seemed to be more successful this time around than 2016. But the success in the South just wasn't there, and it's a challenge going forward.
And I live in Louisiana, and I reached out to folks consistently trying to get Bernie to Louisiana, and it was difficult, and we didn't make it happen. But Joe Biden came, and when Kamala Harris came, and Elizabeth Warren came. And when you think about that, Southern voters are simple. They want to see you. They want to shake your hand. And they want to believe that what you tell them when you shake their hand or you speak to them in person will be true, right? And I think that relationship building is important for progressives in the South, not just Bernie.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, let's see. Super chat from Mileta Ruiz, who says, grew up in Dominican Republic during the aftermath of a dictatorship, would never have believed secret police kidnappings and swampy government would be blatant. Yeah. Yeah, watching what's happened in Portland and is now spreading to other cities has been devastating. Let's see. Over on Twitch, we have some comments with Lundbergra saying, happy belated birthday, Gary, and sending in a cake. Trashy Plays says, you know what? I like Gary. More Gary, please. Nice. Okay, we'll be reading more as we go on, but for now, let's jump into the next topic. Hold on to your butts. This is a dark one. There's headlines all the time about how Donald Trump is losing his base. It's falling apart. And certainly in the polling, he's not necessarily doing as well as he would like to. But there is one group in America that is they're still liking their Donald Trump. And unfortunately, it's a big group. White people. Roughly 50% of white voters would vote to re-elect Republican President Donald Trump if the election were held today, according to a new poll by Hill Harris X. This is not a poll from 6 months ago or 2 years ago. Today, 1 in 2. Like, if you went out, 50% of all the white people you see are still like, yes, more Trump, please. I would like 4 more years of that. Gary, I know this is a topic you wanted to talk about. What are your thoughts?
You know, I think it speaks to the disconnect that the average white voter in the states that Trump does the best have from the rest of America, and the consistent disregard for the humanity of other people. This belief, you know, that if you're not satisfied with Trump, you should get out of the country, go back where you come from if you're black or if you're brown. And I'm from here. Okay. I'm from here. Now, my ancestors did not come here by choice, but as a result, we're here and we're not going anywhere. And what's also telling is how the majority of other races are voting against Trump, right? Or plan to. And I think that's telling because it shows that his policies, his demeanor, his posture, his actions towards black people, towards people of color, is one that has been a full-on assault since he was a candidate. Mm-hmm. And I believe that many people in that community they revel in watching the things that Trump does. And you know, it's just not popular to say that they're racist. But to support a racist means you're a racist, in my opinion.
Yeah, and nobody gets to, I mean, I don't think in 2016 you could, but certainly nobody gets to be like, you know, I haven't really seen it yet. It hasn't been clear to me. No, everything is so clear, and it has been bashed into our skulls on a daily basis for literally years now. A significant portion of our lives we've been witnessing this. And half of white voters have seen all of it, and they like it. I sort of pitched the intro as they're okay with 4 more years, but many of them are enthusiastic about 4 more years. And Trump's worst excesses, they wish he would be less restrained. Like the sort of dog whistles last week he said about, you know, we're going to stop low-income housing from coming into your suburban dream and ruining it. Like, they want more explicit racist language than Trump is offering. Half of voters. What a sad, sad country that they're okay with that.
I think that Trump is Bull Connor. Mm-hmm. He is what exposes the hatred, the bigotry, and the racism that, you know, went under the covers during the Obama years because we were on this whole conversation about a post-racial society. And what we see is, no, the racists were just, you know, ironing their sheets, right? That they were just getting ready. And I think that they traded in the white sheet for a red tie and a blue suit and show up at Republican Party meetings and discuss how they can literally systemically cut people out of the voting process. Even Trump's whole logic about mail-in voting, right? The guy who votes absentee voting is telling people that mail-in voting is a problem.
Exactly.
Right? He's a pathological liar. And to watch him do the things that he does consistently and cheer that on says that you enjoy this, and it says that you are it, that mm-hmm. This is you. And I think that Trump, in large part, is just catering to the base. You know, he is just trying to do the things that he believes will get them excited and motivated to get out and vote. No matter what the virus is doing, they're going to go vote. And of course, he's saying, you know, don't social distance, don't wear a mask. It doesn't matter if you wear a mask, all of those things. Of course, he's taken that position because it's going to encourage more of his people to participate in the process in the traditional way, which allows us to have quicker counts of those votes, I think, on election night.
Yeah. Now, let's jump into a few of the other numbers, give people an idea of where different groups currently lie. So we've got, right now, Trump leading Biden among male voters 45-43. So he wins over guys. Midwest voters 42-39. Independent voters 35-33, which is not generally how I've seen in different polls that he's leading in that group, but apparently here. Voters earning above $75,000 a year 48-39. Voters aged 35-49 by 44-37. So he's winning amongst those sort of core adults as well. Now, Biden is up in some groups. Biden wins among all other non-politically affiliated voter demographics. His largest lead is among black voters by 65 points, Hispanic voters by 22 points, younger voters and those earning less than $75,000 a year, as well as female voters and Western regional voters by a good bit. So, Gary, what I'm curious about from you is we know sort of why Trump is getting some of the support that he is, and some of those people are never going to vote for someone other than Trump because they love certain core, generally racial things about Trump. But for Biden, so tell me a little bit about what you've seen from him, what he's been offering, and what you think he could offer to really ram this thing home, to finally close it. What do you think?
Well, I'm extremely progressive, so I take a lot of issues with Joe Biden, and I'm not the best person to be a spokesperson for him. What I'm here to tell you is we can't do more of what we've done, right? This guy is so bad that Joe Biden is the best option we can go with right now. My hope is that he picks a phenomenal vice presidential candidate that will excite the base in a way that he does not, that will excite progressives in a way that he does not, and kind of be the yin to his yang so that he can get greater traction. Because, the truth is we can't just be against Trump, right? We've got to have a plan forward. And I think that if we don't begin to spell that out in a way that reaches people. And the pandemic is going to make it difficult for candidates to move around. But I would love to see Biden not just concentrate on swing states, but, get active in the Deep South, get active in the states that Trump does not expect him to be active in or his campaign to be active in. Louisiana is 34% black. If you turn out, Hillary Clinton got 62% black turnout in 2016. President Obama got 67% black turnout in 2012. What if Joe Biden invested in trying to figure out how do we get that number up to 70 to 75% black voter turnout? And what does that do to an election? I think we've got to get very strategic, very down to the grassroots level. And that's how you upset Trump.
Yeah. I share your hope about the VP pick, that he's going to choose someone. And certainly, I have names that I've mentioned on the show. Do you think that he will, though? And if who are some of the names that you would like? And do you think that he's likely to go in that direction when, they're currently talking about like Susan Rice or maybe Kamala Harris or something like that?
So I think Susan Rice or Kamala Harris would do a phenomenal job for Joe Biden. I think either one of these women would add credibility among black voters to him. There, of course, will be questions about both of them. Senator Harris and her prosecutorial background. And of course, people are going to bring up Benghazi with Ms. Rice. But I believe that both of them have done enough to be in the positions that they're in. They're qualified for the job. And I think that they would add a flair to him that he could not do on his own as a nearly 80-year-old white man.
Yeah. I wonder if you share my fear. I know that what's coming out of Trump's campaign sort of implies that they get that there's not a lot of voters necessarily who haven't made up their minds. Actually, really fast, let me read that. We've got about 3 to 7% of voters saying that they don't plan to vote. 5 to 16% of voters says they're not sure. So it is a very small slice of America that's not sure. And it looks like most Americans haven't really, for some reason, they haven't liked Trump's pandemic response or, how he's dealing with the economic collapse. So Trump seems to be banking on these debates are going to swing this thing back to me. What do you think about that? Do you think that it's likely that could shake things up and put Trump back on top?
I would not underestimate Trump in a debate because the most dangerous man in the room is the one with nothing to lose. And Trump, he has nothing to lose in his mind because people within his community will love him always. Those folks are diehard for Trump. They literally went out in the middle of a pandemic to hear him. I don't care if it was 6,000 or 12,000. Mm-hmm. There were people willing to risk their lives to listen to this man. And so I'm not sure he really wanted to be president to begin with, but I don't think he truly cares other than the fact that he doesn't like to lose, right? But his posture will be to try to embarrass Joe Biden. And I just hope that Joe is ready to respond and be very laser focused in on the issues against Trump.
Yeah. I'm sort of dreading it, man. If I'm being honest, I'm dreading it because, look, I think that Biden did okay in the Democratic primary debates. He generally, like, the voters seem to like those performances more than I would have expected, trying to step out of my bubble. But I wonder against Trump. Trump is such a wild card in debates, like looming behind people like a gargoyle, and he'll say random things. I mean, God only knows what he's going to say about Biden. And so those are going to be tense nights, I think. Not looking forward to them necessarily.
Lots of Sleepy Joe comments.
Oh my God, yeah. Oh my God, yeah. Okay, you know what? Let's roll right into our next story because it's got a little bit of crossover with what we were talking about earlier. One section of the recent Donald Trump interview on Axios that a lot of people had an issue with was when he mentioned, while being asked about John Lewis, he mentioned how much he's done for the black community. If you don't remember this clip, here's a little bit of it.
John Lewis is lying in state in the US Capitol. How do you think history will remember John Lewis?
I don't know. I really don't know. I don't know. I don't know John Lewis. He chose not to come to my inauguration. He chose. I never met John Lewis. Actually, I don't believe.
Do you find him impressive?
I can't say one way or the other. I find a lot of people impressive. I find many people not impressive. But no. But
you know what? I realize while that video also infuriates me, it's for a different reason. I actually requested the wrong one. But he does mention at some point when he's talking about not wanting to meet up with BLM activists that he sort of implies that he doesn't have to because he's already done more than any president other than possibly Lincoln. This is what he said. And he said it actually quite a few times. I mean, he tweeted back in June that he's done more for the black community than any president since Lincoln. He talks about his opportunity zones, his HBCU funding, and things like that. During a speech in March, he said, my administration is delivering for African Americans like never before. No president has done more for our black community. So in that speech, he implies that he did more than Lincoln, actually. Gary, what do you think about this constant refrain from the president?
So I just don't believe in any great white hope. And I think that Trump is trying to position himself as if he has been a great white hope for black people in America, which is a lie. And how insulting and petty is it that this man could not acknowledge the contributions of John Lewis as an exceptional American, right? As someone who has done more to sacrifice for America than Donald Trump ever will. Someone who moved us forward from the tyranny of the white South to the more progressive America that we hope to be, because we have not reached that place yet, but that this man could not just acknowledge the life of such a great American patriot and hero, and then to follow that up and say things like, he's done anybody else. Well, LBJ, right? Civil Rights Act, Voting Rights Act. Trump is actually participating in restricting the vote. Right. So he's doing more damage to black people and allowing the Republicans in the Senate to do more damage to black voters in America, probably than any president since Jim Crow. Mm-hmm. And when you think about the need to activate and mobilize people to vote, Trump doesn't want black folks to vote because we're not going to vote for him. And he can tell those lies as much as he wants to. We don't drink the Kool-Aid, brother. Mm-hmm. It's not happening. And because he knows it, he doesn't want to meet with folks like myself who support the Black Lives Matter movement, because we're not going to buy the foolishness and the coonery that he drops out there as real, and he'll be called out. And because he can't refute the facts that will be brought to him, he needs to go into environments that he can spin. And you can't spin the data out there with police violence, as much as he tries to say more white people get killed by. And this upsets me so much with Trump, because anytime you bring up a race issue, he makes himself the savior, and then he discounts the plight of black people in America by saying something stupid like, well, more white people get killed than black people, but proportionately based on population. And this guy may not understand data, right? He may not understand how to read data. And that's the problem. And, I've got a quote: "In God we trust, everybody else bring data." And if the president of the United States can't articulate the data, then maybe the guy's not even smart enough to be in the position, which we knew that from everything he said, right? But the action, and he's such a petty individual. He's so petty. He's so upset that John Lewis didn't come to his inauguration. Sir, many people didn't come to his inauguration, right? And that's why he had to lie and put up fake photos when he got inaugurated so that he could pretend people came. And people did not come because they knew he would be the disgusting individual that he is right now.
Yeah. I think that you are definitely onto something about the data. I remember not that many months ago him saying the quote, "Well, there are many per capitas." I don't know what he means by that, but no, I don't think that he understands that. And it is interesting that he really does want to have his cake and eat it too. Like he'll be making the argument like, "No, I don't have to meet with BLM. I've already done so much. I'm great. They should love me. They should love me. Oh, by the way, no, more white people have died." Like he can't stop himself from throwing out the racist narrative for his base, even while trying to deceive people into liking him. And the only real thing that's changed about that narrative through the course of this year is that because the economic damage from the pandemic has been so devastating, he no longer says his, I've done more to lower black unemployment than ever. He used to say that 3 times a week, even though everyone's seen the chart. It is a continuing trend from before he was president and after his president. Best that can be said is that he didn't do enough to totally derail it, I guess. But even that he can't claim now, considering so much damage that's been done economically, which we're going to show in a little bit.
The real truth is Trump made a statement when he was campaigning to black people: "What have you got to lose?" Right? Herman Cain went to a Trump rally. He lost his life. Everything. We have everything to lose.
Yeah. Yeah, and to think, when that happened, we showed some videos from Herman Cain on like Fox Business and stuff like that early on in the pandemic, before I think it had killed maybe like 15 people or something when he appeared. And he was so confident of Donald Trump's leadership. Like he really was saying that Trump's got this, he's going to protect us. And to know that, months later he would end up dying, probably because like as I've always said, some people were always going to die. The vast majority probably could have been saved. Herman Cain's life individually could have been saved, but he had confidence in the wrong person. Jeez.
No doubt.
Yeah. Okay, we've got more to get to, but we are going to touch base with the audience, see what's been going on. David, thank you for your super chat. Dog-faced pony soldier, great little... Is that a Biden reference? "If Trump doesn't leave after losing, do we fight?" Gary, what do you think?
Hell yeah.
Yeah? You think he's going to leave? If he loses, you think he's going to leave and these fears are overblown? What do you think?
I think Trump's a bag of hot air. How's he not going to leave, right? Is the government going to allow him to stay? That becomes the question. What does the Senate and the Congress do, or what are their powers in that situation if this man refuses to leave? And the Constitution dictates that there's a day and a time where the president is to be sworn in, right? Is he going to show up to the inauguration and just stand there while they try to elect the next president? Like when we listen to the things that he says, you like play it out in your head. Like, how is this really going to happen? Are we that spineless that we're going to let one individual decide? And he's arrogant enough to do it now. The question is, are we foolish enough a nation to allow it?
Yeah, I can totally picture like Biden's getting sworn in and Trump's just like looming behind him, and it's just awkward. No one wants to do anything about it. But look, I would answer your questions with a question. do you think that Mitch McConnell wouldn't go along with it? Like if coming out of election night, Trump is like, well, we don't have all the mail-in ballots and I can't trust him, so I'm just declaring that it didn't. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but I feel like a lot of Republican elected officials, and certainly Fox News, would be totally behind him if he was like, no, it doesn't count. It wasn't fair.
I think that the Supreme Court has shown, and I'm sure that this would be an issue that ended up litigated in the court some way. I think that the courts have shown that they will not has proven that. And I think that if this ends up in the courts in any capacity, that Trump goes down in flames. He's already going to be the worst president in U.S. history on record. But if he does this, he will cement himself forever in a way that is in no way repairable.
Yeah. Oh, God, it's going to be a exciting time. I'll put it that way.
It's going to be like the last few years, a crap show.
Yeah. Minx Johansson says, hey, John, I too would like more Gary, please. Sending greetings and love from Australia. Nice. Okay, let's see. On Twitch. I don't normally read these, but I'm only going to read it because our producer Bart put a comment. So StephMont12 says, is it objectifying to say that Gary has awesome eyes? And Bart responds, it is not objectifying because eyes are a light to a beautiful spirit. Keep shining, Gary. Look at the poetry in the comments today.
Thank you.
We also have a question for you. I think Brooke Marks likes your video quality, wants to know what camera you're using.
The iPhone 11 Pro.
Oh, nice. Okay, I shouldn't be surprised that it's high quality then. Yeah, I've heard that photo.
Apple, you owe me a check for that.
Exactly.
Apple owes me a check for that.
We didn't plan this endorsement. It wasn't like a plan. Okay. Maureen B says, I think we need a third party, and Bernie's the only recognizable person for this. Let's figure it out. Maureen, I understand the feelings. I just and there are third party candidates, obviously. Bernie Sanders just doesn't. He's not going to go along with that. Like he's supporting Biden. It sucks. It sucks every day, but that's what it is. Okay.
This is the problem, man. And if we want to change, that, what we should do is work our tails off in the off years to build the infrastructure that we can compete. But now's not the time to do that.
Yeah. Well, look, the struggle to remake our country and make it what it needs to be, like the time that you spend voting is a few seconds of that, but it stretches for years before and years after, and that's where the important work is done. A lot of the most important work is done during primaries and in advance of them, trying to make sure that we have great candidates so that we can have moments like Cori Bush winning and Rashida winning re-election and all of that. Like that's the big work. Let's see, there was a quick question from, I think it was Silvana, who asks, what's on my back shelves? It's board games. It's just board games. Because this is my house. Anyway, with that, we've got a little bit more. Okay, here we go. Shockingly, Rudy Giuliani is still the president's lawyer somehow, and because of that, he gets booked on cable news quite often. And because he's, a close confidant of the president, what this guy thinks about things like the Black Lives Matter movement, that concerns me, and I think it should concern all of us. Here is what he had to say recently on Fox News.
They want to do away with the police. This is no longer America. This is some other country. They are literally trying to overthrow our way of life. And we can't have that happen with a phony election. If the American people want that, they darn well better vote for it, because I don't think they will. As they learn more about the agenda, just go read the 2 or 3 backup documents for Black Lives Matter. Black people get salaries for the rest of their lives. Nobody else. It's a very, very strange society they want to set up. And so far, they haven't said a single word, even when the terrible violence is taking place by Antifa or by Black Lives Matter, both of whom are domestic terrorist groups, without any doubt. And you know who knows that best? African Americans. I've actually had them tell me, why aren't they classified as a terrorist group? Is it just because they're black and nobody can say it?
Okay, so that is Rudy Giuliani echoing what Tucker Carlson has been saying for months, that Black Lives Matter, all the protesters, they are all terrorists, effectively. It's a domestic terror group, and they should be arrested and locked up in mass for terrorism.
So let's be clear. Every person in the streets of America is not a member of the Black Lives Matter organization. Mm-hmm. What Black people are saying is that our lives matter, that we support the mantra of the organization, that we support the idea that Black people should have their full humanity in America. Rudy Giuliani said something that's quite telling to me. He said that they believe that Black people should be paid and nobody else, right, for the rest of their lives. We were worked for free, under slavery, and nobody else was. Okay, there were entire economies built on the backs of Black people for free, brutalized, who were raped, who were treated as less than human, who our Constitution and our document says were 3/5 of a person. So if America owes anybody anything, it owes Black people something. We pay money to Japan for what we did to them. We pay money to many other countries for the damages that we've done in war, yet we will not pay for the American citizens who you killed their ancestors, you legally allowed their ancestors to be brutalized. Rudy Giuliani is a joke. He's trying to remain relevant, and that's really what happens to failing white politicians at this point. They attach themselves to this guy so that they can get on TV, because otherwise, who would care what Rudy Giuliani had to say anyway?
That is a very good point. And to your earlier point, it really does seem like they don't want to say it specifically, but all they're doing is they're imagining all of the injustices that were perpetrated on Black Americans during slavery, and they're just switching the positions and imagining that's what the future must hold, and they're terrified by it. They're worried that they're not going to get the money, that only Black people somehow are going to get the money. They talk about, armed gangs. Tucker Carlson talked about this, that I think or maybe it was Sean Hannity, said that there's not going to be police, there's just going to be armed Black gangs walking the streets and hunting people down, calling to mind, of course, groups of white individuals hunting down escaped slaves and things like that. The fact that they say we won't ever be able to win an election, when, of course, for how long Black people weren't allowed to vote. So yeah, it really just does seem like they're trying to conjure up for their white audience a future where things are going to be flipped, and the sins of the past are going to come home to roost, something that's been lurking in their minds. And my fear is that for their largely older, very conservative white audience, that it might be effective, that they've poisoned them against any sort of consideration for the need for reform of the police and that sort of thing. I wonder how effective this sort of rhetoric is.
When you're talking to evil, hateful people who know what they would do or what they have done with power. We don't have massive examples of Black people suppressing other people as a result in America. Black leadership in America is some of the most gracious leadership. Black folks are too forgiving sometimes, if you ask me. If you look at when Dylan Roof killed the 9 people in the church in South Carolina, before he was even sent to trial, the family forgave him. Right? Yeah. Because that is the heart of Black people in America, that we are a forgiving people, but we are not a foolish people. And we know that we have been screwed by America. And what we are saying is, give us what we are due, because we have built this country, and that we did so for free. And so I think that the fear that is upon them is because they know what they have done. And when you know that you are guilty, my grandmother also says, a hit dog will holler.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Now, look, unfortunately, we do have a little bit more from Rudy Giuliani. Before we get to the second video, though, I do want to respond to one of the claims he made, which was that they, I guess, Black Lives Matter leadership or the protesters have been silent about the violence. They haven't acknowledged it. There has been violence and people have been killed. That's true. And they've almost always been identified after the fact to be KKK members, white supremacists, militia members, and things like that. They refuse to acknowledge that, despite the fact that throughout all of this, you've had headlines like from friend of the show Ken Klippenstein, the FBI found no intel indicating Antifa involvement in Sunday's violence. The fact that reports going back literally years show that Right-wing extremists have murdered at least 329 victims in the last 2.5 decades, while Antifa members, who pretty much everyone at these civil rights protests is tarred as being one of those, haven't killed any. We know the nature of the actual violence, and they don't want to talk about it. I don't know if you saw, but Ted Cruz had a hearing yesterday talking about violence at these protests, and he kept referring to a particular act of violence where 2 police officers were killed, and he kept implying that that was BLM protesters that had done that. It was a white supremacist, and we've known that for literally months now, but he kept repeating it, even though he kept getting corrected by other members at the hearing. It was too convenient for him to pretend that it was black activists that had done that.
Because he knows that the people who support him aren't actually watching the hearing, that he can cut his soundbite on his social media and talk to them. And so he continues to tell those lies. It is incumbent upon the rest of us to confront those lies as often as he spews them.
Exactly. Okay, just a little bit more from Rudy Giuliani, because he has landed on a talking point that the president used in his recent interview. Here is the president's lawyer.
Yeah. Stop the nonsense. Stop the nonsense. These are killers, and these are people who hate white people. They're people who hate white men in particular, and they want to do away with a mother-father family. They don't think fathers are necessary.
What is this?
This is what we're talking about. Not the bull that you get on silly television.
It's important to point out, too, Rudy, that there's a difference in the slogan, Black Lives Matter, and the group that is yelling, fry 'em like bacon. Totally different.
Okay, so Rudy Giuliani, they hate white people. They especially hate white men. They especially hate old white New York lawyers. Like, how specific can he get with his fears there? And then she says, no, go on.
So let's be clear. If we want to talk about what's wrong with America, white men have been at the center of it. Who were the founding fathers? Who allowed black people to be considered 3/5 a person? Who allowed slavery to exist in America? It was not white women in charge. It was not black men in charge. It was not the natives in charge. It was white men. Who are the majority of the people running America right now into the ground? White men. Who are the majority of the governors who are failing their citizens in America? White men. And so there is a white men. Maybe if some of you stepped aside and allowed people with a little more humanity and a little more compassion to live, we could move from the dirt and the dust that is in to a place that is prosperous for all people. And when white men stop fearing that the advancement of other groups of people is somehow going to harm them, then maybe America could get to a place of real progress for all people.
Yeah.
Rudy Giuliani's trash.
I think we've long suspected that. Yeah, he is. And Ainsley Earhart there, who she didn't identify. I assume that she's in the leadership of Black Lives Matter. She's speaking as if she was in defining what they're actually about. She said the thing that Trump said at the Axios interview, the reference to the pigs in a blanket quote, which, again, in case people don't know, we have international viewers who don't necessarily know this whole movement and its history and everything. That was like a couple of people at one meeting 6 years ago. And they're still talking about it. The president is still talking about it. And he's using it as an excuse to say, I don't need to acknowledge any of these grievances. There is nothing valid about it. I don't have to have a meeting. There will be no reforms because someone chanted 6 years ago. Like, what social movement doesn't have a sign that's offensive or a chant or a slogan or someone tweets something? That is a threat. That is a standard that no organized movement could ever pass. And of course, they don't really care. It's not like they're actually worried that these people are going to be killing cops. It's just convenient to say we don't have to pay attention to these people and their concerns.
Cops kill more people than people kill cops. That's number one. Number two, look at the comment section of any local news station in the Deep South, and I'm sure you will find worse said about black people than what those people said about police officers. Yeah. And the question becomes, did any of those people harm a police officer? I'm probably sure they didn't.
Yeah. Okay, one more story we're going to get to. Before we do, a couple more super chats with Stan Z saying, I don't understand the fear of Trump not stepping down. The Secret Service reports to the new POTUS at noon on 1:30. If they have to, they'll escort him out of the White House. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I get it. I get it. It's incredibly cut and dried. All of this it has also been in other countries that have not had smooth, peaceful transitions of power. And I do think that there will be one. I think that if the election goes for Biden, Biden will become president. But I don't think that if you are worried about stuff being done, that is illegitimate. I think that it could well be. Okay, we've got Galfar started up a sort of poll on Twitch saying, okay, all in favor of Gary being a regular guest on TDR, type 1, and then a whole bunch of different people spamming 1. So Twitch is in your corner.
Well, that's up to John. That's up to John.
Well, we'll see. I don't know. I'm hearing good things. Okay. Dylan Troderman says, loving Gary's perspective today and happy B-Day. In jank voice, of course, he can't read data. It's not a picture and doesn't have his name on it.
Thanks.
Anthony Patrick says, this coming from a guy that married his cousin. Come on, Rudy. Yeah.
Did he?
He did. Oh, there's a bunch of ones in the YouTube chat. It's now spread across multiple platforms. But yeah, he did. John Oliver likes to bring that up anytime he mentions Giuliani. Raleigh Jones says, did Antifa bomb Beirut too? Yeah, it's just convenient when you declare that Antifa is responsible for literally everything. Okay, Mleda Ruiz says they are lucky black people are after equality and not after revenge. Exactly, and they assume that equality
Kimberly
is revenge.
Jones said that.
What's that?
Kimberly Jones said that, and that is a fact. That is a fact.
Yeah. Okay, let's jump into. Okay, the ones have not stopped rolling in. The chat is now taken over by it. So I don't know. We might have to look into it. Okay. So with that, let's jump into some of the other consequences of this pandemic, but a little bit less public health and a little bit more economy. We have known from the very beginning of the national lockdowns that it was going to have an effect on employment, and it certainly has, with at one point something like 40 million Americans going on unemployment in a very short period of time, and we get that many of those people are still without work. But I want to focus today on who and where the damage is being done, because it's not everybody, and it's not everywhere, and it's certainly not equal. So, an economics professor at the University of Chicago found that workers in the lowest quintile of income have experienced 3 times as many job losses as workers in the highest quintile. That's a shocker for longtime viewers of the show. But that's just looking through the lens of income alone. He also says that when you consider race, age, and gender, that could push the differences even further. And so let's take a look at a particular city. So this is unemployment rates for different neighborhoods in New York City before and after the pandemic. And you can see that overall, there's a massive rise in unemployment. But you'll notice that the rise isn't nearly as bad in basically like the heart of Manhattan. It's worse, but when you look at some of the other boroughs, it is devastating. Some of those have gone beyond the dark purple color to literal black, the maximum rating for growth in unemployment in that area. And so, Gary, I guess we're not shocked to find out that, this is not being evenly distributed, but I don't know if there's enough consideration in like the ongoing negotiations over what the aid is going to look like from the Senate, that this is not just a thing of, corporations are kind of hurting. This is that certain communities, certain income demographics have been absolutely devastated by this thing.
Think about people who are servers, right? About bartenders, people who make the majority of their money on tips, right? That are out of work for months. And think about photographers. Who's getting married, right? Who's taking pictures in these? And very few people are. Some people are figuring out how to be more active in this climate, right? But there are entire groups of people. If you work in the hospitality industry in any capacity, there have been no big gatherings for caterers in who some restaurant owners, they subsidize the money that they don't make through their door-to-door business through catering, right? Well, Who's having a gathering of 250 people in America right now?
Yeah. Yeah.
Who's having the Democratic National Convention, the Republican National Convention? They would normally be up to take over the city, loading into hotels, people going into all of these places, and they understand this. They just know that, hey, we'll take care of the people because those are the people we know, and the poor people, they'll be all right, and if they're not okay, they're not our voters anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Like, like obviously restaurants were shut down, some opened back up, and then in a lot of parts of the country they're shutting down again. Bars the same. When I think about, like, for instance, so normally at this time of the year there's this convention that I go to in Indianapolis, and I've talked to people in the area. It brings in like countless millions of dollars, and that pays for jobs, both for the convention, but also all the restaurants and bars and hotels and all of that around there. That's who's being hurt. And, we were talking about New York. I have a little bit more data on there. You can, even breaking it down to the different boroughs. Throughout June, researchers found that most neighborhoods in the Bronx had unemployment rates above 20%, while most neighborhoods south of 95th Street in Manhattan had rates less than half that. And they said that for comparison, it's like as if the Bronx was experiencing the Great Depression, while the Upper East Side, modest drops in employment. Like, kind of a bad time, but not that devastating. And the thing is, it's not just New York. You can see it. I'm going to show you a picture here of Chicago. Absolutely devastating certain areas. We got the same thing if I jump ahead to LA, where I'm broadcasting from. It's bad everywhere, but certain areas are being hit by far the worst. And, if you know the geography of LA, you can see it mapped out right there. I understand the picture's very small. I apologize for that, everybody. But yeah, and then to see in DC, maybe we'll have a deal by Friday. The unemployment benefits just lapsed, and it'll take weeks for them to come back, even if we get a deal. But, maybe we'll come up with something. Like, the lack of urgency is such an insult, just being spat upon by our government, who, they're all still pulling a salary. They're not about to be evicted. Everyone they know is weathering this thing just fine. It's insult to injury in this time.
Ask the mayor of Austin if losing South by Southwest this year hurt his city, or his or her city, right? Ask people who have had to cancel. Ask New Orleans, right, and Mayor Cantrell, and all of the festivals that had to be canceled in New Orleans. Jazz Fest, which brings in millions of dollars a year to the city of New Orleans. Ask them how the people who were street vendors fared as a result of this. And, it shows American. And I just hope that voters on election day don't just remember Donald Trump's name needs not to be clicked. But I think that they need to remember that they're Republican senators who are down there toying. And let's be clear, that's our money. Mm-hmm. Okay? We pay taxes. This is not a gift to American citizens. This is saying to American citizens, there's something going on beyond your control. Let us give you some of your money back so that you can survive through this encounter. And it doesn't matter if the American citizen is not paying as much in income taxes, because everybody is paying sales taxes, right? And those sales taxes on the local level and the state level keep the economies going. And without those dollars moving through our economy, you think things are bad now. They're going to get worse. And what we know as Black people in America is, if white America catches a common cold, we catch pneumonia. Yeah. Okay. And in this case, coronavirus unto death.
Yeah. Yeah. The idea that, when you have completely unequal distribution of the economic damage at the same time that from the very beginning, coronavirus has been doing the exact same thing. When I look out and I, because I one of my favorite people in the entire world who's very close by lost her job because of this. I just lost a family member just a few days ago to coronavirus in Florida. Like, there's so much pain and so much anxiety and fear. Thank you. I appreciate that. And fear for the future. And then to listen to DC and people like Steve Mnuchin, the only fear they have is that some people might temporarily make a little bit more money on unemployment than they were when they were being completely abused by their job and not being paid enough. The fact that that's the only thing that gets them mad during this pandemic, I can't believe that we're governed by these people who so fundamentally misunderstand and disrespect the people that they're supposed to be serving. It's got to change. And, I know that nothing that's going to happen in November is going to solve all of it, but I do hope that we can move a little bit in the right direction.
I agree.
Yeah. Gary, thank you so much. It's been great to have you here. I had a fun time. I'm assuming from the reaction that the audience liked your first appearance as a co-host on the show as well. So I have a feeling it'll probably happen again in the future. And just want to thank you for joining us on what has got to be an incredibly hot day in Baton Rouge. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, John. And to all of you all, thank you for the Burge is do good and seek justice as always.
Awesome. Thank you. Stay safe out there, man.
You too.
Okay, everybody, let's respond to a little bit of your comments. But I also wanted to let you know, because it occurred to me literally as I pressed that button, that if you would like to see more of Gary, not only on this show, you can also follow him on Twitter at Gary Chambers Jr. So feel free to head over there and let him know what you thought of his time on the show. And by the way, thank you everybody in the chat. I do appreciate that. Okay, so let's see. Bitterroot says 2.3 million Americans are still enslaved in our prisons, disproportionately people of color. Corporations, etc., profit off of prison labor. We legally dehumanize people in order to subjugate them. 100%. Miss Kelly says, lesson from Rudy Giuliani. Floss. Lesson learned. Gina Jones, thank you for your super chat. I appreciate that. Let's see. A few others. I think, we have a poem from Franklin Sharpslicer who says, don't want to sound too obsessive. Yay, we got a couple more progressives, and I find no disgrace if voted out by every race. Any tax on wealthy, listen, mister, wouldn't even be an economic whisper. Very well done, Franklin. I wish someday that we would have sort of like a play-by-play of him putting it together on a daily basis. Well, thank you. We had a couple more comments about Gary, with Christopher Moore saying Gary Chambers Jr. for president. JL saying, this is for Gary's contagious smile. Love seeing him as a co-host. Hope this isn't the only time. Thank you. Gogo Latata says, love you, Johnny Pie. Gary must be a guest host again. Thank you very much. Let's see. Tony O'Reilly says, when white people are too busy worrying about a loved one with COVID-19 to watch Fox News, they tend to like him less. Yeah, that certainly strikes through the, what they've been told about it effectively being a hoax from the very beginning. That's true. Oh, just so I don't forget, by the way, I mentioned this yesterday, but I want to remind you that if you would like to weather this pandemic in style and travel on a vehicle where you're going to sort of almost necessarily be socially distancing, how would you like a free electric scooter, which you can get through a partnership between Aspiration, one of our sponsors, and Zoom e-scooters. You can head to tyt.com/greensummer for your chance to win by signing up for an account with Aspiration. If you already have an account, you can refer your friends to get multiple opportunities as well. So enjoy that. I know that there are photos floating around of JR with his time riding on one, looking very cool. A reminder, by the way, that if you can think of sort of standout clips that you particularly enjoyed, maybe something that got you to continue watching the Damage Report, please tweet those at me, because we're working on this Streamy Awards submission thing. And so I'm sure our team would appreciate that. So thank you in advance. Ryan Nowicki sent in a super chat saying, in 2007, Executive Order Directive 51 was signed by Bush. It gives POTUS broad emergency powers under a catastrophe. Some think Trump will enact this to disrupt voting. Have you heard of this? I have not. But you can't hear me? You can hear me. Why would you not be able to hear me? It's going up. Sound is barely audible. I didn't change it. Why would his audio have left? That's interesting. Ooh. Okay, let's see if that's perhaps a little bit better. All the settings are the same. Anyway, we got through all the important stuff, so hopefully it's okay. Let's see. I'm getting a lot of comments there. Well, the show's almost over, so I guess it'll be okay. Let's see. Thank you to Raging Mouse for your Twitch sub. Obi-Wan Kenobi is just shy of 300 gift subs on Twitch. We can't tell you how much we appreciate that, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You are a true ambassador, and we really do appreciate that. I think people can hear me now. Can you hear me? Good. Thank you. People are asking for Abby. Is that a possibility? Is Abby around? Thank you. I know you're busy. Thank you. Let's see. Oh, here's Abby. She's still short-furred. Oh, yeah. Oh, thank you. Okay, so Abby's gonna stay for the rest of the show with me. So cute. All puppies matter. Oh. Don't you just love being able to see her eyes? Like, she's super cute when she's all floofy, but look at her beautiful eyes and her cute ears when they're trimmed. She's so much cleaner. And this is her brother, Hilo. Hey, Hilo. How's it going, buddy? He doesn't like it. Thank you. Okay, everybody. You've received your dog. Am I not merciful? Anyway, thank you, everybody, for watching. Heads up that tonight on Twitch, I am going to be taking part in our monthly game night, and that will happen at a time, I don't remember exactly when. It's like 6 or 7 Pacific, but you know what you can do? Go to twitch.tv/TYT, subscribe to it, and you'll get notifications when we go live, whenever that is. Should be a lot of fun. Maybe more details to come. Tomorrow is the final show of the day, so we're of course going to be ending the week as we always do with our garbage people of the week. I'm going to have a choice, Brett's going to have a choice, and you too can take part in choosing the TDR Community Garbage Person of the Week by heading to our community tab on our YouTube channel and voting there. We're going to tally those votes and present them tomorrow. And with that, thank you, everybody. I'll see you tomorrow. Stay safe out there.